President Trump has had enough. His priority is protecting the people of Chicago and the federal officers who protect them. Because while do-nothing politicians like J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson look the other way, ICE agents are fighting for their lives simply for doing their jobs. That's why the president ordered hundreds of National Guard troops to the Chicago area to enforce federal law and defend federal property when local leaders refuse to do so. But now a Biden-appointed judge has temporarily blocked that deployment, granting Illinois' request for a restraining order, even as violent protesters try once again to choke off ICE operations around Chicago. So ask yourself, who stands with the men and women wearing the badge, and who is standing in their way? Few know the Windy City, its politics, and its people better than former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, and he joins me now. Rod, thank you so much for joining us here on My View. Let me just off the top get your reaction to the fact that you had this Biden-appointed judge saying, look, you're not going to bring these National Guard troops in here right now. And this judge said she's, quote, seen no credible evidence that there has been rebellion in the state of Illinois. What do you make of all that?
Well, it's another lie by another Democrat. The judge was a Democratic appointee appointed by President Biden. She was a top aide to our failed Cook County prosecutor, Kim Foxx, who had all kinds of issues, including not prosecuting Jussie Smollett. She received, Kim Foxx, incidentally, $2 million in campaign contributions from George Soros. So it's the same crowd. This Democratic judge is basically just like Mayor Johnson, the Democratic mayor of Chicago, and our governor, Democratic Governor Pritzker. They've made a decision. They're choosing sides, and they're choosing to be on the side of lawlessness and mob violence, chaos and anarchy. And they're choosing to be against law enforcement, National Guard servicemen and women, against the rule of law and the enforcement of the rule of law. It's a very clear issue. President Trump was elected on this issue. He was promised to secure our borders and fix the illegal migrant crisis. What the governor of Illinois and the mayor of Chicago ought to do is work with the president to do that, to protect American citizens. And, you know, Laura, your viewers probably know, but I'm just going to remind them that there are 14 million illegal immigrants in America. And conservative estimates suggest that 10% of those are criminals. And what kind of criminals are we talking about? We're talking about fentanyl drug dealers. We're talking about gangsters, child sex traffickers, and cold-blooded killers. And for me, as a former Democrat governor who actually had J.B. Pritzker work for me when I was the governor, it's a mind-boggling situation that my party has decided to abandon law-abiding American citizens who pay taxes and have chosen instead to make a priority of protecting illegal immigrants, where a whole bunch of them, tens of thousands of them, are violent criminals.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm sure if you went out and talked to the people who live there in Chicago, they probably would welcome the help. They would probably welcome somebody coming to clean up the streets and keep them safer. But you had Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson saying the National Guard deployment was, quote, a war on Chicago. And he's now established these ICE-free zones. So I'm curious, what do you think he's doing? What is the ultimate goal here? You know, you say that they have chosen the wrong side. Does he expect that his citizens are going to be any safer by doing this?
He doesn't care that the citizens are less safe, nor does Governor Pritzker care that the citizens are less safe. We also have a problem with violent crime in our city. And crime is all over the city of Chicago, but it's actually segregated. Carjackings and armed robberies and retail thefts are all over Chicago. But in the black neighborhoods, the murders occur. 80% of the murders in Chicago are in black neighborhoods. 95% of the murders in the city of Chicago are in black and Latino neighborhoods. And we average more than a murder a day in the city, and nearly 600 reported crimes in the city of Chicago. And both of these two, Pritzker and Johnson, have turned down President Trump's offer to help to address the issue and keep Chicagoans safe and replicate the success President Trump has had in Washington, D.C., with the National Guard there reducing crime, with a Democratic mayor who's working with the president, or certainly not resisting him, like our governor and like our mayor. It's a rotten flip-flop by the Democrat Party.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Well, by the way, we see the D by your name there, and you still technically, I guess, are a Democrat, but you call yourself, Rod, a Trumpocrat. And I know that you voted for President Trump in 2020 and in 2024, or supported him rather. And, you know, you didn't need to go out of your way to do that. But I'm so curious to hear from your perspective. What was it about President Trump that made you come out and say, listen, this is a guy that I want to get behind, and I think everybody else should too.
Well, there's a few layers to this answer. Now, to begin with, I've had some experience as a former governor of Illinois with presidents. Obama and I have known each other since 1995. I knew him when both of us were basically just young guys. We hadn't quite gotten elected to anything yet. And then the two of us went pretty high. He went a lot higher. I've had interactions with Clinton and Bush and Biden and President Trump. And so just to start, I've learned hard lessons through my political experience, having been sent to prison for 14 years for conversations Obama started when he went to the White House, and I ended up going to the Big House. And I learned, after all of my experience in politics, first and foremost, I'm for people who are good people. And I know President Trump on a personal level, not that well, but I've had several experiences with him. He's kind-hearted, he's good, and he loves America. And he puts America first. He puts the interests of the American people first, where these other politicians, these other presidents that I talked about, Obama in particular, and Biden perhaps the worst, they don't care about putting America or the American people first. They even sacrifice the interests of the American people for these larger issues that they pursue because of their own political ambitions. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is the Democratic Party is a very different party today. President Trump has created a different kind of Republican Party. A political party is an expression of whose side are you on? And the Trump Party has now taken a side to back the forgotten Americans who the Democrat Party used to be for, but the Democratic Party has now forgotten the vast silent majority of everyday ordinary people who share the same values of family and faith and love of country, respect for law enforcement, and reverence for our flag, simple, basic things. And Trump is changing American politics because he has prioritized working people, everyday, ordinary, average Americans. The Democratic Party used to be for, the Democratic Party is abandoned. Trump has come out there and fought hard for them, and we're so grateful to him. And I'm not the only Trumpocrat out here, Lara. There are millions of us.
There are. It sounds like from the scene behind you there, we could have used the National Guard there in Chicago today. But I digress. Former Governor Rod Blagojevich, thank you so much for spending some time with us on My View. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Lara. Thank you.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.